Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Today we get to do one of the fun ones where we get to just go figure some stuff out. And we are going to be talking about Azure's Virtual WAN, and more specifically, how do we use a FortiGate firewall inside of Azure's Virtual WAN. So one of the things that has always really stood out as far as having a firewall on premise and having a hardware firewall as opposed to using the FortiGate VMs or other virtual firewalls that you get in the cloud is a lot of the security processing, the decryption, the re-encryption. It really isn't optimized for CPUs. So when you create a FortiGate VM, whether that's in Azure or even if you did it in your own data center, you're using CPU cycles to do those processes as opposed to the dedicated chips that are in a FortiGate firewall. So because of that, it tends to be more expensive to run those VMs on compute in the cloud, especially when you're talking about Azure, right? If you wanted Palo Alto firewalls, FortiGate firewalls, you would need to create 2 VMs and you would need to load balance the NICs and this whole complicated architecture. And the key thing is that compute is not running on network hardware that's optimized for that process. So the things that Azure gives off natively, the app gateway firewall, Azure firewalls, those are optimized. They run on network stacks. When you think about Azure, there's like just giant compute stacks, and some of it's optimized for memory, some of it's optimized for storage, some of it has graphical processing units in it. And likewise, they also have stacks with network processing optimized for it. And one of the cool things about the Palo Alto and the FortiGate SaaS solution is that it integrates with that network layer. So we're taking advantage of Azure's specific dedicated hardware to run FortiOS in the background, right? So that's really, really exciting about this. I'm hoping that it works out really, really well, but we're going to get started and see how it goes. So let's start off by going up here to our Azure. I'm back after, 6 or 7 days of troubleshooting. I tried a bunch of different configurations and I realized that the original idea that I had was just not going to work. So I did find a way to get a design that does work, and it looks a little bit more like this one right here. So we've still got our 2 sites, but the one thing is that inside of our virtual WAN, we just really need a firewall hub. And we're going to connect everything to that firewall hub. And when I say what are the things that we're connecting, we're going to connect our DMZ networks. We're going to connect our regional networks, whether it's in the East, Central, West US. I did confirm I got network traffic to route between those with a single virtual WAN. And the key thing is that I separated out in this visual the Express Route gateway and the site-to-site VPN gateway and the user VPN gateway, because those are actual separate compute costs inside of the virtual hub. So this is what actually ended up working. And so inside of the lab, I tore it all down, and I'm just going to go rebuild it all right now. Like before, it's going to take like 30 minutes for each of these resources to provision. So we're going to have to play a little bit of a waiting game. So one of the main things that I had trouble with is the routing. If you are a traditional network guy, software-defined networking, it kind of sucks. But we got to get used to it, right? So there's this auto magic setting, which was based off of a ribbon within the firewall manager. And there's a setting in there where you basically force route all the traffic to the firewall. And that was the magic trick to get routing to actually work. And I'll show you that here in a minute after we get things provisioned. But the software-defined networking component can be tricky, so be careful on these. So let's go to our resource group. And now we've got our virtual WAN. The next thing that we need to do is get a hub provisioned. Let's add a new hub. This is going to take a little bit of time because there's a lot of things that go along with creating the hub. So we want that to be in our hub resource group. And we will make that 10.0.0.0/24. And you have to give it a routing capacity. So this is going to directly relate to how much you're paying. So you're paying for these compute costs on this virtual hub, kind of like that picture, if you recall. The user VPN gateway is going to have its own compute costs. The site-to-site VPN gateway will also have its own compute costs, and then the ExpressRoute gateway is also going to have its own compute costs. And then you'll have your firewall, which will have its own compute costs as well. So, but those are the only ones that are important to the hub. So let's go ahead and select no for now. And we're not going to do ExpressRoute, and we can't create the firewall from this particular wizard. So let's go ahead and create that, and that's going to provision our VPN gateway, and it's going to provision the hub. It's going to take about 30 minutes, so we'll wait on that. And then after that's done provisioning, we'll enable the firewall. I'll do some research while I wait for the next 30 minutes and see if I can figure out that user VPN portion, and we'll come back and proceed to the next steps. So. All right. Found this article. And it says that I need to follow this URL, which I did not see in the Microsoft instructions, the official ones that are linked here. Maybe I overlooked it, but regardless, so let's go ahead and follow this link. See if we can get an enterprise application provision for a user VPN. There we go. Sign in, read. Okay, so all that looks acceptable. Maybe that's the link it intended to redirect me to. All right, so that's not the one I was working on, is it? Nope, this is the one I was working on. So now if I go to my enterprise applications, do I see an Azure VPN in here now? All right. All right, so on the Azure VPN application, I grabbed the tenant ID, and we're going to have a tenant URL, and we're going to have an issuer URL and the audience. The audience is going to be the application ID of this particular enterprise application registration. And over here, we have our firewall that's been provisioned. The VPN gateway is still working on it. And routing is not enabled yet, but the actual object's here, so we should be able to create a user VPN gateway. And if I follow these instructions appropriately, I might actually be able to get one. So, yeah, so there's no server configuration, so how on earth would I create a server configuration? I do it through the WAN level. Aha, there we go. So you have to do that at the WAN level. Let's go over here to Azure Active Directory. I'll turn this on. Our audience. Issuer is going to be sts.windows. And our AAD tenant is going to be that. No user groups. Address pool. Unassigned. Does that get assigned at this level? Okay, this does not appear to get assigned at this level. So let's go back into the hub level. I'll go to our user VPN. Now I have a configuration, okay. Address pools, what was that? 10.0.2.0. Thank you for the reminder. All right, so default, all users, custom DNS servers. I don't have custom DNS servers just yet, but we will update that with the Active Directory DNS servers once we get that done. So let's go ahead and create that. So we got VPN provisioning, user VPN provisioning. Now we need to do the firewall. And on the firewall, I know that at the beginning of this, I had originally talked about using a FortiGate firewall, and I did try to do a FortiGate firewall, but there's issues with the licensing and the way that they're doing high availability. It just is too prohibitive cost-wise. So I have got this working with an Azure firewall, but you can imagine if you do have the licenses and you do have the bandwidth to be able to use a network virtual appliance, you could replace the Azure firewall with Palo Alto or Fortinet. But for demo's sake, I'm going to go ahead and spin up an Azure firewall, even though I know that's not what I said in the beginning. Tried to make it work, but Fortinet did not want to play nice with me. So let's see, select virtual hub for our firewall. We are going to convert an existing hub. And okay, so let's go ahead and select premium. We don't need availability zones. It's going to go, yep. Select a firewall policy and available list below, except you did not give me available list. I have to create a firewall policy first. People, what am I going to do with you? You know, Microsoft, the wizards are supposed to be helpful. All right, so we'll put this Central US. We'll make it a premium. Yeah, let's keep all this off for now. Rules. Yeah, probably should do a rule collection. Default rules. Make give it a priority of 1,000 so we can override it, because this is going to be a pretty liberal one. And we're just going to allow all. And we'll say the source is star, protocol is any, destination port is star, destination is any. Okay. Leave that in place until we verify routing is working, and then we will get that locked down a little bit. Threat intelligence. Okay, alert's fine. All right. Now let's go back and try and, let's go back and try and create our firewall again. Virtual hub. Create an Azure firewall. Let's make it premium. There we go. Select this policy. There's other options besides Palo Alto and Fortinet. They have these security partner providers. I haven't messed with Checkpoint in probably a decade, and I haven't messed with Zscaler at all. So I don't know what those are about, but they're options if that's the vendors that you have in your environment. All right, so let's confirm that. All right, so routing status is still provisioning, the Azure Firewall is provisioning, the user VPN gateway is provisioning, the VPN site-to-site's provisioning, and then we talked about express route on this particular diagram. If you're in a corporate place where you have an express route, this is an option as well. So what we have is most of the stuff the firewall on-prem, all the on-prem stuff's built out. We are going to need to modify the VPN settings on our on-premise firewall after that gateway gets finished spinning up, because we don't have the IPs and stuff right now. But we'll get that provision in the next step. And then we have our user VPN gateway, and then our firewall is getting stood up right now. We have all of these networks up here created as well, but we haven't created any of the actual stuff inside of those networks, neither the app gateway as well. So we're going to let that cook. These things should finish provisioning, and when we come back, we'll work on the next step, which is going to be setting up the VPN gateways and the user VPNs and whatnot. So we're back with the provisioned hub, and now that the firewall has been deployed to this hub, we can see that the icon is red instead of blue. So the first thing that we need to do to get routing to work is we need to go to this routing intents and policies. This one messed me up a lot, because if you set up static routes between your hubs and everything, then you can actually turn this on. So now that the firewall has been provisioned, we should have a magical resource in here called Azure Firewall. And we're going to point it at the specific instance of our Azure Firewall. And we're going to route all private and internet-based traffic to the firewall. We're going to hit save. So while that is going on, let's back up here to the hub, and let's go down to virtual network connections, because we need to connect our west, central, and east regions to this hub. All right. So by default, what you see in your virtual network connections is we've got the hub in here, and we're going to link the actual networks one by one to this hub. So what was called, web was the west, I believe. Yeah, so we'll put the web stuff in the west. So we'll say West US Web Services Connection. And we'll fix our capitalization. let's link those to our firewall hub. And then the first network, this is West, so that one, West Web Services is in the Empyrean subscription. And then it says CUS. Just pretend you didn't see that. We get this VNet Web Services, West US. And we're not going to propagate a static route. We're just going to rinse and repeat that with all the other networks as well. And as you can notice with the little spinning bell up here, it takes a while for these things to actually connect. We need to get the file services from the East US. Not propagate static route. All right, so we got the network peering and still updating our routing table. So we'll give it a minute. Okay, we've got a peer set up. We'll give these a few minutes to finish up running. Me waiting on the provisioning of these resources. All right, so our intent-based routing finally finished provisioning. And now if we go into our hubs, go into our firewall hub. This is the thing that really tripped me up. You have to go in here to your Azure firewall, and you have to actually get to the firewall manager. So in normal infrastructure, if you had a firewall manager, you would have a separate object in Azure. Firewall manager. Firewall manager is pretty expensive, and you only do it if you have like a bunch of firewalls or whatever. But this is a pretty cool little tool that you get with the virtual hub. So the way that you get into the virtual hub's version of the firewall manager is you have to actually click this banner, right? This messed me up. It took me forever to find this banner. I messed around and I did all sorts of variations for days on end before I figured this out. So once you get in here, you click into this and you have the security configurations. In security configurations, you link all of your different networks and you have to make sure that they're linked in this window. Because we did the intent-based network traffic to the Azure firewall, this all populated for us. But on the other one, when I was breaking it, when I finally figured it out, I had to go in here and manually connect all these networks in order to get the routing to work the way that we expect to. All right, so now that these are all linked, what we should see, if we go back to the hub, is we should see effective routes. Load up. All right, so if we pick our firewall and we look at what our firewall's routing table looks like. All right, so we see we've got these two networks that are going to the VPN gateway. And that is for the site-to-site gateway. So I'm not sure if there were some default values put in there. Oh no, that must be the user VPN gateway. What is it? Yeah, 10.0.2 range. Did it put my regular VPN gateway in the 10.0.2 range? Okay, I'll have to work on that. But regardless, so that you should see your effective routes. So what we see in here is our virtual network connections. They're going to go peer out directly to those virtual networks. The 0.0.0 internet-based traffic is going to go through the firewall and that out to the internet. And then I'll fix this here in a minute. But 10.0.2 /25s are going to route out to our VPN site-to-site gateways. So now that we kind of got all the routing stuff figured out, we need to fix our link because I had an original link where I set up the VPN on the FortiGates. We have a new VPN gateway now, so let's go in and check that out and get that repaired. So we have no site, so let's create a new VPN site. We'll call this MHT-firewall. And this is a Fortinet. And the only thing going here is 172.19.0.0/16. Okay. Link name. Perion.forta.dns.com. We don't have BGP address because we're just signing a static route of the whole 172.19. I did get BGP working at one point with Fortinet though, so you can get that if you need that. It's a cool option. It's dynamically assign all your routes from on-premise. Don't have to worry about anything special. Okay, so there's our VPN site deployment. Let's go in here and grab our new IPs. So that's repaired. All the SHA, AES-256, all that stuff's going to stay the same. And then we got 10.0.0.4 as our VPN gateway. So that's what was expected. You have your backup and you have your BGP IP addresses if you need to do any peering. You can also set custom BGP addresses if you just want to create a specific IP address for BGP that you like, other than the default for whatever reason. All right, so we don't need to edit any of that. What we do need is to grab this site and link it. So let's connect that VPN site. Grab my key. Okay, so we're doing IKE v2. We don't want to propagate any routes. Okay, so all that looks good. All right, so once that's done provisioning, we should see this light up as connected with connectivity status as green. After that's said and done, we should be able to ping the firewall. We go in here and grab firewall's IP addresses. That's public IP address. All right. Everything's looking good so far. Okay, well, VPN's updating, so we'll give that a little bit of time to provision. Like everything else, it takes a little bit of time, and we'll be back. So all of the 10.0.0.0/8 is going to route over our VPN gateway. And with that, I should be able to ping the firewall now. 132. Go ahead and do a -T. Hey, look at that, I'm getting replies. If you look at the firewall, I'm going to sniffer packet just to verify what the firewall is doing. Odd. I don't know, my firewall is not behaving for me right now, but we do see ping responses returning. You know, you got 22 millisecond latency. It's perfectly acceptable for most resource things that you would need to do. All right, so then what is next? We got routing working on all the hub stuff. We got the user gateway. I'm gonna close out of this. I don't even know why it's doing that. Try it again. We'll do it this time. Now it's just getting stuck. Anything? Yeah. Regardless. Go ahead and close out of that one. So I believe the next big thing is going to be our user VPN connections. VPN server configuration. It's an XML file, I'm pretty sure. No, that's not the actual configuration. Here we go. Virtual hub user VPN profile. Sure, go with that. So there's that portion, and then there's also a download of the Azure VPN client that's required. Okay. I have that in a zip folder. Let's go ahead and extract that. So that's our gateway configuration. We need to actually install the VPN client first, though. Figure out whether I'm supposed to run this PowerShell or what. It looks like it's just installing the Windows App Store version. Anyway, what do you know? Woohoo. Alright, so let's launch import plus button on the bottom left of the app. There we go. Get that imported. Sweet. DigiCert, client secrets, Azure AD. Okay. So we're disconnected right now. But I should be able to. Where did my terminal go? Close this out. In theory, I connect to the VPN. I should be able to ping the firewall interface again. Let's go ahead and try and connect. And this is backed by Azure Active Directory. All right, so now I'm connected. And I still get responses back. All right, so now we got the basic routing working. We've got Azure Active Directory working, but I want to make it to where that application is actually requiring two-factor authentication. Lucky for me, I have custom security attributes. It's pretty amazing. Okay. Always require MFA. Yes. Let's hit save. Let's try and disconnect. Oh, and it's force routing all traffic. Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, so disconnected. Let's try and connect again. Received the AD credential token. You're just gonna let me go because I already have a token, aren't you? Apparently there's a cache in this VPN client. That's not what I want to do. Okay, apparently I can't test that yet, so I'll figure out. There's got to be some setting in here for clearing the cache or VPN timeouts or something. Location logs, high availability, compact view. Yeah, not worth messing with now, but we have the virtual WAN. So we have a VPN gateway we can route. We can prove that we can route to the firewall. We can connect to the user VPN gateway, and after the cache times out, we'll have two-factor enforced on that. So we can get to the firewall, and we know that we can route between things at the moment. So we can route between the VPN gateway, the user VPN gateway. We go over here to our firewall, effective routes. Like I said before, we have the actual site-to-site VPN gateways in here now. I don't know why the user-to-site gateway says S2S. That threw me off a little bit, but whatever. It's got the right range. So, the 10.0.2, we're going to send that back to the user-to-site VPN 172.19, that entire /16. We're going to send it to the site-to-site gateway. All the individual networks, we're going to send all that traffic out to those particular networks via the network peering. And we have virtual WAN. So our next step is going to be to actually build resources inside of these networks so that they can connect. So one thing that we're going to build is an Active Directory server. We're going to set up firewall rules and everything so that our on-premise Active Directory can replicate up to the cloud. And then after that, we need to set up DNS so that we can get some records going for the East and West US regions as well. So if you're still around, it's a pretty long video building a virtual WAN. But this is a quick and easy way to do things in comparison to how we had to do it 2 years ago. So I really like the virtual WAN, and I look forward to deploying more of these in the future. So if you like this video, go ahead and click like and subscribe below, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.